My name is Michael Anderson, and as unlikely as it may seem, I'm the CEO of First National Bank, one of the most respected financial institutions in the United States. At 42 years old, I built my career from the ground up, starting as an intern at a small credit union in Nebraska. Today, I command a company that moves billions of dollars monthly and has over 800 branches spread across the country. That Saturday morning in October 2024, I woke up with a troubling sensation. The morning sun of New York City entered timidly through the window of my apartment on the Upper East Side, and Thor, my 4-year-old golden Labrador, was lying next to me on the king-size bed. Thor isn't just my companion. He's my service dog, trained to detect anxiety episodes that sometimes overwhelm me since a car accident I suffered 3 years ago. During the previous week, I had received concerning reports about customer service at some of our most exclusive branches. Clients complained about differential treatment, arrogant employees, and a hostile environment for people who didn't appear to have high purchasing power. As someone who grew up in a simple family, my father was a mechanic and my mother an elementary school teacher, these complaints bothered me deeply. "Thor, how about we take a walk today?" I asked, scratching behind my faithful companion's ear. He wagged his tail, as if he knew something special was about to happen. The idea had emerged during a conversation with my assistant Sarah the previous Friday. She mentioned that her cousin had been poorly treated at the Wall Street branch, our most exclusive location, because he was wearing simple clothes and was accompanied by his young son. The manager, according to the account, had been rude and prejudiced. I decided it was time to learn the reality behind the numbers and reports that reached my executive desk on the 47th floor of the corporate building. But I wouldn't go as CEO, I would go as Michael, an ordinary citizen trying to resolve banking matters on any given Saturday. I chose purposefully simple clothing, a navy blue polo shirt, faded jeans, and running shoes that had seen better days. In the mirror, I didn't look anything like the executive who graced the covers of specialized magazines. I looked exactly like what I intended to be that day, an ordinary man with his service dog, needing to resolve a banking issue. The weather was typical October in New York, that humid heat that makes clothes stick to your body and leaves the air heavy with city smog. Thor seemed anxious, walking back and forth across the apartment while I put on his special collar that clearly identified his status as a service dog. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next chapters of this incredible journey. Before leaving, I called Sarah. "Sarah, I need you to cancel my appointments for today. I have something important to do." "Any problem, Mr. Michael?" she asked, concerned. "No problem, just a private inspection." "And Sarah?" "Yes? If anyone asks where I am, say I'm in an important external meeting." "Don't lie, technically, that's exactly what I'll be doing." The Wall Street branch was about 20 minutes from my apartment. I decided to take public transportation, something I hadn't done in years. I took the subway at the Lexington Avenue station, and during the journey I observed the people around me. Workers returning home after a morning shift, families strolling, young people with their smartphones. Ordinary people, like I intended to be that day. Thor behaved perfectly, as always. Some people looked curiously at us too. An ordinary man with an impeccably behaved service dog. No one suspected that I commanded the financial lives of millions of clients. When we exited the subway at the Wall Street station, the movement was intense even for a Saturday. The characteristic smell of the city, a mixture of car exhaust, street food, and urban life, invaded my nostrils. It had been a long time since I experienced New York this way, at street level, like any ordinary person. The branch was inside an imposing building, all mirrored glass, reflecting the frenetic movement of the avenue. It was one of our premium branches designed to serve high-income clients. Modern architecture, reinforced security, and an interior that looked more like a 5-star hotel than a traditional financial institution. I stopped in front of the building, observing the movement. Well-dressed clients entered and exited, most carrying executive briefcases or driving imported cars that stopped at the valet service. Thor remained calm beside me, but I could feel slight tension in his posture. He was picking up on my growing anxiety. For a moment I hesitated. Was I doing the right thing? As CEO, I had access to all the information I needed through reports, satisfaction surveys, and internal audits. But something told me that only by experiencing it as an ordinary client would I truly understand what was happening. I took a deep breath, adjusted Thor's collar, and walked toward the branch entrance. I had no way of knowing that the next few minutes would change not only my perspective on my own company, but also the lives of several people who were about to meet me. The branch's revolving door was heavy, made of tempered glass and stainless steel. When Thor and I entered, I immediately felt the temperature difference. The air conditioning was running at maximum, creating an icy contrast with the humid heat from the street. The internal environment was exactly as I had approved in the architectural projects: Italian marble floors, imported crystal chandeliers, genuine leather armchairs, and decoration that conveyed luxury and exclusivity. But there was something that reports and blueprints couldn't capture: the atmosphere. And it was cold in a way that went beyond the air conditioning temperature. The security guard at the entrance, a tall and burly man in an impeccable uniform, looked us up and down with an expression that couldn't disguise his contempt. His eyes lingered on my simple clothes, then on Thor, and finally returned to my face with a forced and professional smile. "Good morning, sir. May I help you?" he said, but the tone made it clear that the real question was, "What are you doing here?" "Good morning. I need to resolve some issues with my account," I replied naturally, showing my common bank card, not the black corporate one I normally used, but a regular card I had specifically requested for occasions like this. The guard examined the card with suspicion. "And the ... animal?" "Thor is my service dog. He always accompanies me," I explained, showing the documentation that proved Thor's status. By law, service dogs have guaranteed access to any commercial establishment, including banks. After verifying the documentation with unnecessary delay, the guard finally allowed us entry. "Take a number from the terminal over there and wait to be called," he said, pointing to an electronic machine in the corner of the lobby. The internal environment was even more impressive than it appeared in the projects. There were about 15 clients waiting for service, all visibly belonging to the upper class, men in suits, women with designer bags, young executives talking on their phones in foreign languages about international investments. And there I was, with my simple clothes and my dog, looking completely out of place. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell to receive all updates from this incredible story. I took number 84 and headed to one of the leather armchairs. Thor settled elegantly beside me, as he always did. Several people looked at us with poorly disguised curiosity. I could hear whispers. "How strange to have a dog in here, ... must be some special client ... doesn't look like he has money to be in this branch ... double quotes." The comments bothered me, but at the same time gave me valuable perspective on how ordinary clients felt in that environment. The subliminal message was clear. If you didn't appear to have a lot of money, you weren't welcome there. I discreetly observed the employee dynamics. There were 5 service windows, but only 3 were functioning. The employees seemed to divide clients into invisible categories. There was visibly warmer and more efficient service for well-dressed people, while other clients were treated with cold and protocolary courtesy. The relationship manager, a woman about 35 years old in an impeccable tailored suit, circulated through the environment greeting selected clients. Her name, according to her badge, was Patricia Williams. She stopped to chat animatedly with a suited man who had arrived after me, completely ignoring other clients who had been waiting longer. The electronic panel called number 81. An elderly couple stood up and went to window 2. The employee attended to them with basic politeness, but I could perceive that the service was quick and objective, none of the personalized attention I had witnessed moments before. Thor remained calm, but I felt my anxiety growing, not because of the situation itself, but because of what I was witnessing. As CEO, I had implemented clear policies for equal treatment of all clients, regardless of their appearance or financial movement. Seeing them being ignored in practice was deeply uncomfortable. Number 82. A young executive talking loudly on his cell phone about $1 million transaction. The same employee who had attended to the elderly couple in a protocolary manner now smiled broadly and offered coffee, water, even some special sweets for preferred clients. Number 83. My turn was approaching. That's when he appeared. Robert Martinez, branch manager, a man of approximately 40 years. Slicked back hair, tailored suit, and a smile that managed to be both friendly and arrogant at the same time. I knew him from reports, Harvard Business School graduate. 8 years with the bank. Excellent results history, but also some specific complaints about unorthodox methods of service. Robert had just come out of his mirrored glass office when he saw me. His eyes made the same journey as the guard's. Clothes, dog, face. But unlike the guard, he didn't try to disguise his reaction. A raised eyebrow, a barely contained mocking smile. He approached where I was sitting with calculated steps like a predator approaching prey. Thor slightly raised his head. He had picked up on the change in environment, the tension that was beginning to form. "Excuse me," Robert said, stopping in front of my armchair. His voice had that falsely polite tone that could barely hide the disdain. "Are you waiting for service, sir?" "Yes, I am," I replied calmly. "And may I ask what type of service you need today?" The question itself was normal, but the way it was asked made it clear that he believed I shouldn't be there. Other clients began paying attention to the conversation, sensing that something was about to happen. "I need to check my balance and make an inquiry about investments," I replied, maintaining a neutral tone. Robert laughed. It wasn't a discreet or polite laugh. It was a genuine guffaw that echoed through the silent lobby of the branch. Some clients turned to see what was happening. Robert's laughter echoed through the marble lobby like a stone thrown into a silent lake. The sound spread, creating waves of discomfort that reached every corner of the premium branch. The other clients stopped their conversations, employees paused their services, and even the ambient sound system seemed to lower in volume to make room for that uncomfortable moment. "Investments?" Robert repeated, still smiling with that expression of superiority I had seen so many times in corporate meetings, usually on the faces of people about to be fired. Excuse me, sir, but investments? Thor moved slightly beside me, positioning himself almost imperceptibly between Robert and me. My dog had been trained not only to detect my anxiety crises, but also to recognize confrontational situations that might trigger them. Yes, investments, I confirmed, keeping my voice calm and controlled. 20 years of experience in boardrooms had taught me that whoever loses composure first loses the game. I have some questions about financial products available for clients like me. Robert's expression changed. The mocking smile transformed into something closer to irritation. He looked around, noting that we had a growing audience, and this seemed to encourage him even more. Like many insecure men in positions of power, he needed an audience for his displays of authoritarianism. Look, buddy, he said, and the word buddy sounded like an insult. I'm going to be straight with you. This is a premium branch. Our clients have a very specific profile. Not just anyone can invest here. The silence in the environment was palpable. I could see employees exchanging uncomfortable glances. One of the tellers, a young woman who couldn't be more than 25 years old, looked visibly embarrassed by the situation. Some clients were discreetly taking out their cell phones to record, after all. Confrontations in bank branches frequently became viral videos. And what would be the necessary profile? I asked, genuinely curious to see how far he would take this. Robert gestured vaguely toward the other clients. Well, you can see for yourself. People with resources, people who know how to present themselves appropriately in an environment like this. His eyes fixed on Thor, and certainly people who know that animals aren't allowed in bank branches. This story is getting incredible. If you're anxious for the next chapter, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thor is a service dog, I explained patiently. I have all the necessary documentation here, as I already showed your security guard. Service dog for what exactly? Robert asked with a tone that suggested he didn't believe my answer. I felt heat rising in my chest. It wasn't anger yet, but it was heading in that direction. Talking about my medical condition was always uncomfortable, especially to a hostile stranger in a public environment. For severe anxiety and post-traumatic panic attacks, I answered honestly. Robert let out another laugh, louder than the previous one. Oh, of course. And let me guess, you also have some invisible disability that gives you the right to a bunch of special benefits, right? The comment cut through the environment like a slap. I could hear some clients muttering curses of indignation. The young teller brought her hand to her mouth, shocked. Even other employees seemed embarrassed by their manager's behavior. It was at this moment that I felt Thor gently press his head against my leg, a signal he had been trained to use when detecting the first signs of an anxiety crisis. My breathing was faster, my heart was accelerating, and my hands were beginning to sweat. Mr. Robert, the young teller, tried to intervene discreetly. Maybe we could ... Jessica, you go back to your window. I'll handle this here, Robert cut sharply without taking his eyes off me. The electronic panel called number 84, my number. But Robert made no move to direct me to a window. You know what I think? He said, crossing his arms. I think you wandered in here by accident, saw the environment, and thought you could try to pass yourself off as a client to get some special treatment. Maybe even sue the bank for discrimination, huh? It's a common strategy nowadays. The accusation was like a slap in the face. Throughout my entire career since my intern days, I had built my reputation based on integrity and honesty. Being accused of being an opportunistic scammer, especially by the manager of my own company, was almost surreal. May I check my account? I asked calmly. What do you mean? You're questioning whether I have the resources to be a client of this branch. May I verify my balance to clarify this matter? Robert laughed again, but this time there was a note of uncertainty in his voice. Sure, let's go. But look, he said, raising his volume so everyone could hear clearly, if you really have significant balance in that account, I'll pay double from my own pocket. The provocation echoed through the environment. It was exactly the type of arrogant bet that insecure men make when they have absolute certainty they can't lose. Some clients laughed nervously. Others seemed embarrassed by the situation. Robert led me to a self-service terminal in the center of the lobby where everyone could clearly see. Come on, buddy. Show us all that fortune. I took my card from my pocket, not the common card I had shown the security guard, but my black corporate card, which I always carried with me. It was a different card, heavier, with special finishing and the discreet logo reserved for the 5 highest volume clients of the bank. Robert looked at the card and frowned. What card is that? My bank card, I replied simply. I inserted the card into the terminal and entered my password. The machine processed for a few seconds. It always took longer for high-volume corporate accounts. Robert remained beside me, but I could notice that his posture had changed slightly. There was something about the weight and appearance of the card that had caught his attention. The screen showed the inquiry options. I selected check balance. The machine processed again, and then the terminal screen flickered for a few seconds before displaying the result. In the frigid environment of the premium branch, I could clearly hear the beats of my own heart and Thor's anxious breathing beside me. The silence around was almost palpable. All clients and employees were paying attention to this moment that would define the direction of the entire situation. When the numbers finally appeared on the screen, Robert instantly turned pale. His eyes widened, his mouth opened slightly, and for a moment he seemed to forget how to breathe. The balance shown was $847,329,847.23. Almost $1 billion in checking account, not counting the linked investments that appeared as links on the screen. That can't be right, he stammered, moving closer to the screen as if he could make it change through pure force of will. Would you like me to also check the consolidated investment position? I asked calmly, already moving the cursor toward the corresponding option. No. Robert was visibly in shock. His hands trembled slightly and a film of sweat had formed on his forehead, even with the air conditioning at maximum. That card. Let me see that card again. I handed him the black corporate card to examine. It was a card I knew he had never seen personally. There were only 5 in the entire country, reserved for the main shareholders and directors of the bank. The engraved name was clear, Michael A. Anderson. I could see the exact moment when the penny dropped. Robert's eyes moved from the card to my face, then back to the card in a desperate loop of denial and recognition. He knew my name, of course. All managers received internal communications signed by me, participated in video conferences where I appeared, had access to the annual report where my photo was on the first page. You are ... double quotes, he began to say, but the words got lost in his throat. If you're as shocked as Robert, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to see how this story ends. Michael Anderson, CEO of First National Bank, I completed for him, keeping my voice low but clear enough for everyone to hear. Pleasure to meet you personally, Robert. The impact of the revelation was instantaneous and devastating. Patricia, the relationship manager who had completely ignored my presence all morning, let out a muffled shriek and dropped the papers she was carrying. The young teller Jessica brought her hands to her face, obviously imagining the consequences of this moment for her own career. Clients began murmuring excitedly. Some were already discreetly filming with their cell phones. Robert remained frozen for several seconds, holding my card like it was a grenade about to explode. His skin had gone from pale to a slightly greenish tone, and I could notice droplets of sweat forming on his forehead. Mr. Anderson, he finally managed to stammer. I didn't know. I mean, you weren't. How could I ... double quotes? No, I completed the sentence for him. Well, you could have treated all clients with the same respect, regardless of their appearance. You could have followed the service policies we implemented at the bank. You could have been a professional instead of a ... I made a deliberate pause. How did you call me? An opportunistic scammer? The environment around had completely transformed. Employees discreetly left their workstations to witness the unfolding situation. Some clients canceled their services to stay and watch. The entrance security guard had approached, clearly not knowing whether he should intervene or not. Patricia tried to approach, stumbling slightly in her high heels. Mr. Anderson, this was a terrible misunderstanding. Robert certainly didn't mean to. I raised my hand, interrupting her. Patricia, you ignored my presence all morning. I saw you warmly greeting other clients who arrived after me, offering special services, coffee, personalized attention. For me, not even a good morning you managed. She opened and closed her mouth several times like a fish out of water. There was no possible defense for behavior that everyone had witnessed. I turned my attention back to Robert, who was still holding my card with trembling hands. You made an interesting bet a few minutes ago. You said that if I really had significant balance, you'd pay double from your own pocket. Mr. Anderson, please. I was joking. It wasn't serious. I would never... double quotes. How much do you earn per month, Robert? The question surprised everyone. It was direct, personal, and put Robert in an even more vulnerable position in front of all that audience. Well, that's kind of personal. $23,000, I answered for him. As CEO, I had access to all employees' salary data, plus commissions for goals, which should bring you to about $30,000 monthly. So you owe me $60,000. The amount echoed through the environment like a judicial gavel. $60,000, twice Robert's monthly salary for an arrogant bet made to humiliate someone he had misjudged. But I don't have that money. A ball, quotes he whispered, finally admitting the reality of his situation. The silence that followed my collection of the bet was deafening. Robert remained there standing like a statue, holding my black corporate card and processing the magnitude of the hole he had dug for himself. Thor moved slightly beside me, positioning himself so he could give me physical support if necessary. He had picked up that my anxiety was growing, not because of the embarrassing situation, but because of the responsibility of deciding what to do next. I don't have that money, Robert repeated in a low voice, more to himself than to me. His hands were visibly trembling now, and I could notice that some drops of sweat had formed on his forehead despite the frigid air conditioning in the branch. I looked around the environment. The employees were clearly terrified. Jessica, the young teller, seemed about to cry. Patricia maintained an expression of poorly disguised panic. Other employees who had approached to witness the confrontation now wished they were anywhere else in the world. The clients, on the other hand, seemed fascinated by the drama unfolding before them. Some continued filming discreetly, others whispered among themselves about the unusual situation. Are you following every second of this incredible turn? Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any detail. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility on my shoulders. As CEO, I had built my reputation based not only on financial results but also on human values. How I handled this situation would define not only Robert's future but also send a powerful message to all staff and clients present about what kind of leadership I exercised. Robert, I began, keeping my voice calm but firm. You owe me an explanation better than I was joking. Explain to me, to your colleagues, and to all the clients present why you thought it appropriate to treat a client, any client, the way you treated me. He slowly raised his eyes like a child who knows he's about to be punished. I thought that ... double quotes, his voice failed and he had to swallow hard before continuing. I'm sorry, Mr. Anderson, I judged by appearances. I thought you didn't have the profile of our usual clients. And what is the profile of your usual clients? Well, ... people with greater purchasing power. Who dress more ... elegantly ... Robert, do you know how much this shirt I'm wearing costs? I asked, lightly touching the fabric of my navy polo. He shook his head negatively. $140. Actually more expensive than many dress shirts. And my sneakers cost $400. My jeans, $300. They're not cheap clothes, Robert. They're just casual clothes. I made a deliberate pause. But that's irrelevant. Even if I were wearing thrift store clothes, even if I had only $10 in my account, I would deserve the same respectful treatment as any other client. Patricia tried to approach again. Mr. Anderson, please allow us to present our most sincere apologies on behalf of the entire branch. This behavior doesn't represent our values, ... doesn't it? I interrupted. Because from what I observed today, this behavior seems to be quite common here. I saw you treating clients differently, based purely on appearance. I saw employees offering special services only to well-dressed people. I saw an environment that clearly communicates that simple clients aren't welcome. The accusation hit Patricia like an arrow. She knew I was right. She had been caught red-handed in discrimination. I turned my attention to the employees who had gathered around. How many of you have witnessed similar situations here? There was a moment of hesitation, exchanged glances, palpable discomfort. Finally, Jessica, the young teller, timidly raised her hand. Speak, Jessica, I encouraged. It's just ... well, sometimes some clients complain that they're treated differently because of their clothes or car ... she said with a trembling voice. But we're instructed to prioritize premium clients. Instructed by whom? Jessica's eyes quickly moved to Robert and then to Patricia. The answer was clear. Mr. Anderson, Robert finally found courage to speak. I accept all responsibility. It was my mistake. My behavior was unacceptable, and I assumed the consequences. It was the first intelligent thing he had said all morning. Recognizing the error, accepting responsibility, behaviors that indicated there might still be salvation for him as a professional and as a human being. And what about the bet you made? I asked. Robert closed his eyes, knowing this moment would come. I can't pay $60,000. I don't have that amount available. So you made a bet you couldn't honor? Yes, sir. It was irresponsible on my part. For a few seconds I considered my options. I could fire Robert on the spot. There was certainly just cause. I could transfer him to a smaller branch away from premium clients. I could make his professional life hell until he asked for resignation. All of these were options many CEOs would choose and no one could criticize. But as I thought, I looked at the faces around me. Terrified employees worried not only about Robert's future but about their own jobs. Curious clients, some clearly expecting a dramatic outcome. Thor beside me offering silent support. I remained silent for several seconds, letting the weight of the moment settle completely. The branch's air conditioning continued running at maximum, but the environment seemed to have heated up with tension. I could feel all eyes on me awaiting my decision. As CEO, I knew that my next words would not only define Robert's fate, but also establish a precedent about how our company dealt with discrimination and disrespect. Storr gently pressed his head against my leg, a subtle reminder that my anxiety was increasing. I took a deep breath, remembering the values that had guided me since my intern days in Nebraska. Compassion, second chances, growth through error. Robert, I began, keeping my voice calm but firm, you owe me $60,000. That was the bet you made publicly in front of all these clients and employees. He nodded miserably, clearly prepared for the worst. But I'm going to make a counteroffer, I continued, and I saw a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Instead of paying me the $60,000, you'll do 60 hours of community service. I want you to spend 2 months helping institutions that serve low-income people, shelters, community daycare centers, organizations that offer financial education to underserved populations. The relief on Robert's face was instantaneous, but I still wasn't finished. Additionally, you'll participate in a professional recycling program that I'm going to develop myself. Together with our HR team, we'll create a course on humanized service, diversity, and inclusion. And you won't just be a participant, you'll be one of the case studies. Robert swallowed hard. Yes, sir. I accept all conditions. I'm not done yet, I continued. I want you to write a detailed report about what happened here today, not a corporate report full of jargon. I want you to tell, in your own words, what you felt, what you learned, and how you intend to change. This report will be shared with all network managers as training material. This story is coming to an end, but you can continue following other incredible stories like this. Subscribe to the channel. Patricia approached cautiously. Mr. Anderson, what about the other employees? I recognize that we also failed to maintain adequate service standards. It was an intelligent question. Patricia was assuming collective responsibility, which demonstrated professional maturity. Patricia, you and the entire team will participate in the same recycling program. But there's something more important I want to implement here. I looked around the branch, making eye contact with each employee present. Starting next week, this branch will be our pilot for a program. I'm creating one client. This means every client, absolutely every client, receives exactly the same respectful treatment, regardless of appearance, financial movement, or any other criteria. Jessica timidly raised her hand. How will we know if we're doing it right? Excellent question, Jessica. We'll implement a system of mystery shoppers, trained people who will come here regularly, dressed in the most diverse ways to test our service. And the results will be transparent to the entire team. I turned my attention to the clients who had witnessed the entire situation. Many were still filming. Some seemed impressed with the resolution I had proposed. Ladies and gentlemen clients, I addressed them directly. I apologize on behalf of First National Bank for what you witnessed today. This doesn't represent our corporate values, and we guarantee that measures will be taken so that situations like this never happen again. One of the clients, a middle-aged man in an elegant suit, approached. Mr. Anderson, I can say I'm impressed with your approach. Many executives would simply fire the employee and close the matter. Your decision to transform this into a learning opportunity says a lot about your leadership. His words touched me deeply. Thank you. I believe people can change, can grow. All of us have misjudged someone at some point in our lives. The difference lies in recognizing the error and working to correct it. Robert approached hesitantly. Mr. Anderson, may I ask a question? Of course. Why are you giving me a second chance? I was disrespectful, discriminatory. I deserve to be fired. The question was deeply personal, but I decided to answer it honestly in front of everyone. Robert, 15 years ago I was in an important meeting with Japanese investors. It was a multi-million-dollar negotiation for the bank where I worked at the time. One of the investors arrived wearing very casual clothes, practically beachwear. Internally, I thought this guy can't be that important. I almost made the mistake of treating him with less consideration. I paused, remembering that distant day. I found out later that he was the CEO of one of Japan's largest technology companies, a man who moved billions. If I had acted based on my initial prejudice, I would have lost not only an important business deal, but also a valuable lesson about humility. Robert listened attentively, as did everyone else. The difference is that I learned the lesson before making the error publicly. You made the error, but that doesn't mean you can't learn and grow from it. If this story taught you something about not judging people by their appearance, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. 3 months later, I received a report about the one client program implemented at the Wall Street branch. The results were impressive. Customer satisfaction had increased by 340%. Complaints had fallen to practically zero, and the branch had become a model for the entire network. Robert religiously completed his 60 hours of community service and became one of the most respected managers in the company. His report on the experience became mandatory reading in our training programs. More importantly, he sent me a photo a few weeks later. He was at a community daycare center, playing with children, a genuine smile on his face. The caption read, "Thank you for teaching me that being human is more important than appearing important, Thor." My faithful companion continued by my side on all my undercover visits, which became a regular practice. We never again encountered a situation as extreme as that October one, but there were always lessons to learn about empathy, respect, and human dignity. The story spread quickly through the American banking sector. Other CEOs began implementing similar programs, and our approach of transforming errors into learning opportunities became a case study in business schools. But for me, the greatest lesson wasn't professional, it was personal. I learned that leading isn't just about making difficult decisions or achieving financial goals. It's about recognizing the humanity in each person, giving second chances, and believing that all of us can be better than we were yesterday. Sometimes the greatest transformations begin with the smallest gestures of compassion.